There you go. I don't have it memorized. Maybe I should have done that. All right, so Deuteronomy chapter 34, verses 1 to 5. Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which is the opposite of Jericho, and the Lord showed him the whole land, Gilead as far as Dan, all Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Messiah, and the land of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negeb and the plain, that is, the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees as far as Zoar. The Lord said to him, "This is the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not cross over there." Then Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab at the Lord's command. This is the word of the Lord.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. See some familiar faces out there. Back in the good old NBA days, the Hollands and the Whitneys and Paula McKenzie, when we all worked together. My friend the Halls, who I knew in Kansas, and your newest members, maybe, Mark and Jackie Dwyer, who we are loaning to you from Hillcrest Christian Church in Overland Park until we can capture them back. But and also Jacob and all the others that I've known throughout the years, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here to sort of lift up for you this very special day in honoring the people who have made their intentions known about remembering this church in their estate plans, as well as maybe some current gifts. We know that as these gifts begin to come to fruition and to grow, then even more money is available for ministry for the great things that you are doing here at Community. I do remember coming to this little sale that you guys have. I think I actually bought something there once, several years ago. You don't do it very often, though, do you? It's just when I know all about that sale. I do come to you representing the Christian Church Foundation. We're headquartered in Indianapolis, but I work out of Kansas City. And we represent churches doing three very specific things: helping churches develop policies on permanent funds, endowments, investments, special gifts. We have an investment program that you all are now taking advantage of to help grow more money for ministry. And third is that we work with individuals on their own personal estate planning to help them think about ways they might want to benefit the church or any charitable cause at the time of their death. So we help churches be good stewards of what they might receive, and we help individuals be good stewards of what they might give. There's a saying that talks about the 7 stages of humankind. And those 7 stages are spills, drills, thrills, bills, ills, pills, and wills. Okay? I'll test you on this later, Jacob, okay? Spills, drills, thrills, bills, ills, pills, and wills. Now, in the Gould household, we're kind of still stuck in that bill stage. Daughters that have graduated and, college debt, and then a wedding a few years ago, and now the grandson, and a little more outgo than income. But it's never too early to begin thinking about the ills, pills, and wills stages, and if not for ourselves, but certainly for parents and grandparents. So I encourage you to look at the table that I have with all of my all of my good literature. Okay, those of you in the Sunday school class, how many people in this country die without a will? 7 out of 10 people we know die without a plan in place. So I'm not going to ask anybody hold their hand if you're one of those statistics, but to that end, I have several brochures out there. One is called basically just a guide to leaving a legacy. Pre-funeral service arrangements, which I bet Jacob wishes every family member would fill out one of these prior to death. There's 25 estate documents you need to put in one place. Going through this, my husband and I realized that I didn't know where his military papers were, and he wants to be buried at Fort Leavenworth. And without knowing where those papers were, he would never be able to be buried in Leavenworth. So that was really important for us to understand. Also, a very important document, information record, vital statistics, where you write down what you owe, what you own, life insurance, all those really things that will just put you to sleep in the middle of a good football game. So pick up one of those as well. And if you just want to know everything more and really get put you to sleep, just pick up the whole packet. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to recognize those who are on the plaque with a little fellowship time afterwards. And please avail yourselves to our services in whatever ways that we can be helpful to you in this somewhat dire topic, but one that is really important for all of us to think about. Well, as we've heard from the kids, we know that this is the season of Halloween. And you know, it seems like it gets longer and longer every year. You know, that candy just entices you, on Labor Day. And just we're thinking about it even more and more. So perhaps those of us of Christians, we have the opportunity to talk about All Saints' Day with an equal amount of energy as well. So as we know, All Saints' Day revolves around us giving thanks for the lives and deaths of saints, both the famous and not so famous. We each can name saintly people in our lives who have touched us in a variety of ways, whether it be a mentor, a teacher, or a leader, or perhaps a counselor, a comforter, or an encourager. I best describe a saint as someone I want to be like when I grow up. So one afternoon, the pastor was leading the pastor's class and was giving a tour of the sanctuary to the young people who were going to become members of the church. And so during one of the sessions, the minister looked around at all the stained glass windows, and it had pictures of ancient people. And he began describing the stained glass windows and the people that were represented. And he said that these were the saints of the church from early Christianity up through modern times. In a disciples' church, I would guess that some of those windows might have been Jesse Bader, Peter Ainsley, T.J. Liggett, or Fred Craddock, or perhaps Rosa Pades Welch or Carolyn Neville Pear. So at the end of the tour, the minister asked the children, "What is the meaning of the word saint?" One young boy looked up, squinting through the light that was coming through the stained glass window, and replied, "Well, they are the people that the light shines through." Indeed, I do believe that there are many people we know whose light shines through them. Their deeds, actions, and work on behalf of the church, it illuminates our lives and it illuminates the lives of others. So, I would like to think that my mother was somewhat of a saint in some very special ways. Mom passed away at the age of 88 in 2014. She was a dedicated church member and had a long career as a nurse. Her life was celebrated in grand fashion at the First Christian Church in McPherson, Kansas, and we buried her ashes in a red cookie jar. Now, Mom certainly was not ready to die. She was active in social clubs, and she attended Disciples Women meetings. She sang alto in the choir. She was the church historian, and she took pictures at every single church event. However, my mom never quite made that transition to digital or cell phone photos. So she kept Walmart in business with her 35-millimeter film processing. And I actually found some undeveloped rolls of film after she died as well. But my mom's real claim to fame was her masterful skills in the kitchen. She won ribbons at the Kansas State Fair for her divinity and her fudge. She could whip up a batch of cookies for any event at any time of day. But more than anything else, my mom was known for her peanut brittle. The labor and the skill and the oversight needed to create just that perfect batch of peanut brittle is what she perfected. I found countless thank you notes from people applauding her wonderful brittle. In the past 25 years before she died, she began ordering peanuts from Oklahoma, usually 50 to 100 pounds each year. I mean, we're talking major production here, folks. Big time production. Now, if you were on Mom's good list, you got it for free. Or if you showed up at church and she had it out, it was for free. Now, if you wanted a bigger quantity or Mom didn't know you quite so well, you had to pay for it. So when Mom went into the nursing home in 2013, I took my power of attorney document and began making the rounds around town to the banks and doctors' offices, the insurance agency, and even the car dealership. Well, they didn't care about the document. Their main question was, Where am I going to get my peanut brittle? She donated brittle to local charities and even to our Camp Tawakoni. Now all of their source was gone. My mom and everyone who knew her was not ready for her to face the end, but then who of us really are? This experience has reminded me of a quote by Reinhold Niebuhr that nothing worth doing can be done in a single lifetime. As we busy ourselves living our lives, raising families, building a career, and working in the church, we often realize that our work cannot be done in a single lifetime. And at some point, we must entrust our business to those who come behind us. We will often leave this world with unfinished business. So the life of Moses gives us a biblical example of a great leader who left this earth with some unfinished business. Throughout the early books of the Old Testament, we read of all of Moses' encounters with God and caring for God's people. He performed miraculous signs that God had sent to him. Moses was a leader who served his people and was obedient to God. God molded and shaped Moses to use him to lead the people of Israel. But because of one incident of disobedience, God does not allow Moses to enter into the promised land. So as they arrive there at the gateway of the land of milk and honey, God says, "You've led your people to this place, and now it's time for someone else to take them there." And in verse 5, we read, Moses dies, period. That is the end of his story. Moses was a great leader who did great things, but his journey of service came to an end. And it was up to the next generation, led by Joshua, to take the people into the promised land and to write that next chapter of the life of the journey of the Israelites. Think also about the life of King David. He accomplished great things during his lifetime, but he had some unfinished business of his own as well. As a devout leader who wanted to honor God, David planned to construct the temple for the Ark of the Covenant. But political problems forced him to delay the construction. Despite the grand and glorious plans that he had drawn up to build the temple, it simply was not going to happen. God said to David, "You shall not build a house in my name, because you have shed so much blood in my sight on the earth, and you have waged great wars. It is your son Solomon who will build a house in my name." Well, David replies, "My son Solomon? He's young and he's inexperienced, and the house that is to be built must be exceedingly magnificent, famous, and glorified throughout all the lands." David, finally, accepting the fact that he will never get to build the temple, does everything he can to prepare his son to do it. So, in anticipation of this great construction project, David accumulated immense quantities of gold, silver, bronze, precious stones, and exotic woods. He then bequeathed these assets to his son Solomon, along with God's plans and blueprints and instructions for the design of the temple. So David's greatest contribution to the temple would not be the construction, but the preparation. David's legacy lived on through the life of his son Solomon. So when King David prepared his will and dedicated the assets and plans for building the temple, these are the words that he prayed. "But who am I, O God, and who are my people that we should be able to give as generously as this? Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. All of this abundance you have provided for building you a temple for your holy name, and it all comes from you, God, and it all belongs to you." So this prayer of David sets the chief biblical principle for all of philanthropy. Since we are all God's creation and all we have comes from God, anything we own really belongs to God. Our philanthropy then becomes a stewardship of giving a portion back for whatever good we are led to support, both during our days of life on earth and then at our death for the generations who will come behind us. When we all reach the end of our lives, no doubt we will leave some task undone, some business unfinished, some mission project unfulfilled. That honey-do list may be left on the refrigerator with items never to be crossed off. In verse 7 of the scripture, we see that even though he was 120 years old, Moses was as strong as ever, and his eyesight was still good. He probably had many, many more good years left to serve God. But the reality is that none of us will ever live long enough to finish it all. That is why we must entrust our unfinished godly business to others. And I believe there is no better place to do that but in the church. In the church provides us this wonderful place to create our legacy, both while we are living and after we are gone from this earth. In the church, we are born, we are baptized, we are married, we are buried, and as some would say, we are hatched, matched, and dispatched. In this place, we find comfort and solace in times of distress, and we celebrate and rejoice in times of happiness. We should each consider leaving more than an empty pew when we die. Another saintly person of the church was a woman by the name of Barbara Allen, who served as the Northeast area minister in Columbia. Some of you may have known Barbara. Barbara's husband, the Reverend Paul Allen, died while he was serving in ministry in Wichita, Kansas. After her move to Columbia, Barbara contracted cancer, and then she eventually moved to Manhattan, Kansas, to be close to her son, who was the pastor there, and it was there that she died in 2010. When the Allens were ministering in North Carolina in the 1980s, they created a permanent fund with the Christian Church Foundation. Now, both of them were barely in their 40s, and they were raising a young son. But they wanted to express faithful stewardship and create a gift that would live on in perpetuity. I have wondered since Barbara's service now 8.5 years ago, if she and Paul had a premonition that their lives would be cut short. Paul was only 50 when he died, and Barbara 66. Legacy planning is usually left to those who are in their golden years of their lives and contemplating how their estate will be divided among children and Uncle Sam and possibly the church and other charitable causes. Because of Paul and Barbara's dedication to the church, now 5 organizations will forever receive an annual distribution from their permanent fund to forever benefit the causes that they love during life. And those 5 causes are Barton College, the Pension Fund, Church Extension, Yale Divinity School, and Week of Compassion. Now, it is important to understand that the Allens were not wealthy people. Remember, they were both ministers. Their contribution to start the fund was not big, but it was generous because it was given with a joyful heart and an act of gratitude. I have come to understand that God does not want from us equal giving. God only asks from us equal generosity. Okay, back to Mom's peanut brittle. For those of you lamenting the fact that her candy is forever gone, well, it was resurrected. And it was not me, by the way. Several years before Mom passed away, my brother, who lives in Topeka, Kansas, decided to learn the skill by watching and listening and understanding how my mom made it. And one Christmas, he became so good that we did a taste-off, blindfolded test between Mom's brittle and Tim's brittle, and it was actually a tie as to which was better. And I tell you, my mom was not very happy about that. She wanted to always be the best peanut brittle maker. So when Mom died, of course, it was my brother Tim who inherited the 125-year-old cast iron skillet where Mom concocted every delicious batch. And now it is Tim's brittle that carries on our mother's memory. Mom's unfinished business is now in the skillful hands of her son. I pray God's blessing to you among this congregation and all of its ministries and the members that serve those ministries with your gifts and your graces as we all seek to build the kingdom of God here on earth. Amen.